Hi, Jan. All right, so anyway, this is the Screencast-O-Matic, and so it's capturing my screen here today for Jan, and and I'll share this with all of you guys. So if you want to take a look at this later, there's tons of screen recorders that are out there. I don't know, what have you used, Corey?
I can't think of it. Whenever I needed to do that, I just found whatever it was
Whatever
the
works.
easiest and free.
Jimmy, you?
Yeah, I grabbed some software in the past, and I've been using that, so I can't remember exactly the name of it.
Okay. So
And that comes with it.
right.
Type, and I've used that
Mhm.
as well.
Mhm.
I love it.
So there's screen sharing software and there's screen recording software. So this is screen recording or screen, some people call it screen scraping, whatever, but it's different than screen sharing. Okay, screen sharing is where I let you onto my computer or I go onto your computer. So that's a little bit different. And sometimes they do both. So in this case, it's only doing this one thing. So what I want to do is I ask you guys to take a look at the settings last night for Google. And what I want to show you now is just how I kind of navigate around. A lot of our students are told that they should go to cwc.edu, and then after they go to cwc.edu, they should go to my.cwc.edu, and then they should, after they get logged in there, go to their whatever thing they want to do. Okay, 98% of the time, my students are either going to go to Google Mail or they're going to go into Moodle or whatever other thing. So a lot of the times, it's pretty straightforward that they're going to go to Gmail. And if I just type in Gmail, it just asks me what my username is. And if I type mher@cwc.edu, it automatically takes me over to the my.cwc page. I can log in, and I could go straight to my mail. So, I don't know, how do you do it, Jimmy?
Well, both ways. I mean, you can go to google.com and
Okay.
type in CWC page.
What's the normal way you do it?
9 times out of 10, I just logged in on my personal computer. I mean,
To what? To My Central or
Yeah.
to, okay.
Yeah, through my central.
Bailey, what do you do? How do you get to your services? Do you always go to My Central or do you go straight to Google Mail? Do you
I
go?
go to my CDC.
Okay.
My email comes to my phone, so I can check it with
So, how many of you read your Gmail on your phone? Do you,
I do.
yours is on your phone?
Occasionally.
Jan, do you read your email on your
I
phone?
have my calendar saved, but I don't
You're probably the smartest one of all.
I don't have my personal, but I don't have my student or employee. I think employee one they require you to go like through IT, I think, to get certain permissions or something like that.
I don't know the answer to it now. It shouldn't be that way if it
I
is.
tried to one time and I don't think it could, but I don't remember why. Well, didn't you have that other? Who was your carrier? That's your was Sprint, not Verizon. So maybe
Oh.
yeah. I think that always locks down the system.
Yeah.
But I typically don't access email outside of work email anyways.
Right.
So.
And that's a really good discussion there too, is if you don't need to, should you? For me, my job is, and some people will say that's not true, but it's pretty much 24/7. I don't respond to email in the middle of the night, but I mean, a lot of times my assignments are coming due on the weekends, and so I do feel, some responsibility to have access to that. So I just do it on my phone, and I actually forward my work phone to my cell phone, so I don't have to bother with my work phone because it's a pain in the neck. So if I just have it all in one place, and I can filter it however I need to. All right, so what we were going to do today is we were going to do two things. We were going to look at the settings in Drive, and we're going to look at the settings in Google Mail. How many of you have really gone in and checked this out in the last 30 days?
Yes, I changed my font. It didn't change my font.
It didn't change your font, okay? So what sort of things do you do in the settings when you go there? Just what's one thing you might do in the settings?
The notification.
Okay, notifications. Okay, what else?
Picture.
A-
Theme.
A theme. So like I have no theme. You could put something besides like complete bare bones white. What else could you do in settings in mail? Okay, so let's just go there. Let's go up to the wheel beneath your picture or the shadow of a picture. And if you click on that little settings wheel, it takes you to a little drop down that says display density, comfortable, cozy, compact. You can adjust those. It just basic sizing on the screen. You can configure the inbox. Most of those things really don't do a whole lot. Really what we want to go to is settings. And this is where there is a ton of stuff. Tons of stuff. So if you look at the top, it says General, Labels, Inbox, Accounts, Filters and Blocked, Forwarding, Pop, IMAT, Chat, Labs, Themes. So if I go to General and I just look through this, some of these things are going to make sense. Some of them maybe not so much. Page size, show 250 conversations, 250 contacts. Reply behavior, reply all, reply, send archive, archive, desktop notifications, keyboard notifications, button labels, my picture. How many of you have a picture in your settings?
Do my personal.
Okay.
I do on my work.
Okay. All right. So this is where you can actually, begin to kind of fiddle with that. People widget, show the people widget, create contacts for autocomplete. So I've got mine set to when I send a message to a new person, add them to other contacts so they can just autocomplete. That's really important for me. I send a lot of messages. I don't necessarily want everybody in my address book, but I don't want to have to type out their name every single time either. Signature. How many people use a signature in their... What's a signature? It just puts something at the bottom of your message. Snippets, vacation responder. Let's talk about the vacation responder. How many of you have ever used a vacation responder on your email? You have to. Corey could probably sometimes get away with it without doing that. I think you having such an incredibly public presence, I think you're the one person probably at the school who really needs to. There's probably 5 others.
I didn't go on the line and when I'm sick. If I call in sick, I go in and I change my email.
So why would you use a vacation responder?
So when somebody sends an email and you're not in the office, they at least get an automated response that it did get sent through, but
Okay.
you're not going to respond until this date.
Okay. Okay.
Or to the one those things.
All right. So, and you can look here that you can adjust the dates for this. This is actually pretty full featured. How long do you think vacation responders have been around?
This is the first one I've ever had.
Guess how long they've been around?
Forever.
Almost since the beginning of computers.
Really?
1960s.
Where were
You were not using a Unix machine, and that's where the computers really got invented. And these things existed a long, long, long time ago. So when I was a little boy, they had the beginnings of email and vacation responders. Yeah. Is that crazy? And it's taken like, what, 50 years for it to become useful? What? It's crazy. So scientists who were using Unix machines back in the 60s and 70s, they knew all about this. They had forwarding, they had vacation, they had all the stuff that you're actually using today. So I kind of chuckle when people get really excited about the latest, greatest gadgets that come out, because if you know much, they've been around a long, long time. So, okay, let's just, I want to flip over here. I want everybody here to go to the forwarding and pop IMAP. How many of you have ever used something besides Google Mail? What was it?
Yahoo.
Yahoo? Hotmail?
school account that I don't know if it was like specific to Gmail. Ours was through Gmail, but my university's might have its own server or something.
So email wasn't always on the web, right? When did the World Wide Web get invented? History question. 1992. Tim Berners-Lee did it on a Next machine, which was one of those machines that Steve Jobs created after he left Apple. That was the World Wide Web. The internet has existed for a very, very long time. It was the DARPA internet since the 60s. People used mail, those sorts of things, but we didn't read it via the World Wide Web or Yahoo or Hotmail or all those things that didn't exist back then. So they used things like POP email or other types of services. So those email servers would be sitting out on somebody's, science laboratory, and Bailey, if you had a computer or you had an account, you would connect to that, and then your mail would show up on your computer that you were sitting at, your terminal or whatever. So this POP and this IMAP are kind of the latest generations of that sort of method of reading email. So when you go onto a website like Gmail and you read your email, where's your email? Where is it? Literally, physically, where is it? If you go, when I look at my email right here, where is it?
In the inbox.
Physically in the planet, where is it? It's not here. No, it's not here. It's not in this building. There's pieces of it. So you can see on my screen, you can see maybe little snippets of it. And those things are maybe somewhere stored. But when I go to click on one of these things, is that email actually inside of that computer? It's not. It's somewhere else. And so I'm just kind of getting a snapshot of it right now. And when I click on something like this, boom, then it goes to the server and retrieves it and displays it on my screen. When I shut down my web browser, what happens to it? Poof, gone. Gone. So it only loads what it really needs to. I'm going to go back to the settings here. So if you go to forwarding POP and IMAP, you can actually forward your email to a different place if you wanted to. So let's say that you only wanted to read one of your email accounts because you have a personal one and you have a CWC one, likely, right? And some of you may have more than that. So you can forward that email, forward a copy of incoming email to, I've done this before, to matt.her@gmail.com, and keep Central Wyoming College's mail copy in the inbox. So send a copy of it to my personal thing, but I don't want you to mess with the original thing. Okay, so keep it in both places. And I could add more forwarding stuff here as well. So if I wanted to send my email to Bailey, because that would be kind of crazy, wouldn't it? But you could do that. You can add a forwarding address, you type it in there, and they'll make you verify that as well. So the POP download is, how many of you have used a thing called Outlook before? Okay, Outlook allows you to read POP email. And so POP email allows you to download the email directly to your computer. So it can be stored on your computer. Why would you ever want to do that? Why would you ever want to download all of your email onto your own computer?
Access.
Perhaps archiving. What else? This is one that a lot of you don't even think about anymore because you don't bump into it. If you were in Siberia, what's your connectivity going to look like? It's going to be sad. So when you turn on your smartphone and you go to read your email, Bailey, how many emails are you going to be able to get? None, right? It's not going to be there. But periodically, when you go to Murmansk or wherever, or Vladivostok, you might actually be able to pick up your email. And you would do that via POP. You would load it onto your device, and then you would go back off into the Arctic, right? And you would have your email with you. And the POP would allow you to create messages, just keep typing them, and typing and typing and replying and typing and forwarding email. It wouldn't send it until you got back to Vladivostok. And so that's why POP was really a thing. Because when did you guys get the internet? Bailey, you probably remember the internet your whole life, right? It's always been a part of it. But for some people on the Wind River Indian Reservation, they still don't have it. They still don't have it. I mean, they might have a wireless thing, but it's hit and miss still. So for a lot of folks, the POP allows them to go to CWC, get the mail on their computer or whatever device, and then go back to where they are without any connectivity. POP does a really good job of that. You can also use this thing called IMAP, which is actually really similar. So you can configure, if you wanted to have your Gmail, if you wanted to read your Gmail on Outlook, believe it or not, you can do that. John Wood's never going to tell you that, but you can do that. So if you want to use Outlook and you don't want to use the web interface for Gmail, you can do that. You should try it. There's instructions on how to do it too. So look, there are configuration instructions. So if you have Outlook, Thunderbird, iPhone, you can configure it for IMAP. And then if you want to use POP up here, the configuration instructions are here. Outlook, Eudora, Netscape Mail. I mean, these are pretty old school sort of things, but there's a lot of people who still use that. So if that's something that is important to you, then you should do that. How many of you use filters or you block people? Okay, so you can filter things here, and you can also block people here. Let me pull up my own personal account so you can kind of see this, because I think I have this pretty well set up. So if I go to settings, I go to filters, I actually have several different ones that are set up here. This last one, this last filter, 819-809-0151, that's actually applying a particular label to certain messages. And then after I apply a label to them, then there's a whole bunch of other processes that actually occur. I don't really block anybody, but if somebody were harassing you, you can actually choose to block somebody. And especially if you're in a public kind of seat of some sort, it might be helpful to you. Sometimes I use that for businesses that are sending me junk and I really don't want to get it, but I'll show you another way you can deal with that. All right, so how many of you have ever changed your theme? What's your theme look like, Bailey? Okay, so if I come here, I'm in the themes, and if I come over here to set theme, I can actually, I'll get this one. I don't even know what that is, but confirm.
Well, that's you.
All right. All right, so I love the aquamarine thing. So you can change your theme, and there are some of these themes. So if I come back to mine and I go to themes over here, let's see if the themes are any different. Looks like the themes are pretty much the same from one to the other. This is kind of a nice theme.
What I like to do is put my own photos.
Yeah, so how do you do that?
You go click my photos.
Yeah, and then you can upload photos.
So if I go to themes, set theme, where's my photos at?
Right there at the
Oh,
bottom,
right.
on the right side.
Yeah.
Okay, my little thing is in the way. I have a lot of photos, don't I? Aww. Oh, there's my cat. He ran away. We couldn't find him. He was old. We think he died. No, that was Kiko. You never met Kiko. There's my little dog. Aww. Murphy. Aww. Look at that. Isn't that cute? Oh. He was sick last week. Like really sick. Like we thought he was gonna die sick. Like, oh my gosh. Okay, what were we doing now?
It's with the themes.
Oh yeah, we were futzing with the themes. Okay. All right. So this settings thing is just stacked with stuff. How many of you actually use labels? Do you use labels for anything?
I have it like for promotions, for like Walgreens.
Okay.
Ads.
Okay. So labels can be helpful. So if I check this little box and I come over here to where it says labels, and it looks like a little label. These are all different sorts of labels that I've created, and some of them came for free automatically. And I could create new ones, blah, blah, blah. And I can nest the labels within other labels. And this is kind of a throwback to a little bit of Outlook stuff where you can begin to organize and things like that. A lot of times, folks' biggest complaint about Gmail is that it's not Outlook, which is relatively obvious. If you buy a Mazda and you wanted a BMW, it's like, well, you probably should have got the BMW, personally. But there's a bunch of things that you can do with the labels, but it allows you to begin to be able to keep your things organized. So the other thing you can do is you can actually create folders. Okay, so I've got these things that they call folders, which they're kind of synonymous with labels though, because you're not physically moving anything, you're just organizing things. It's really all you're doing.
My issue is that I do have things that have labels, but for some reason they still appear in my inbox instead of going directly into the folders. What did I set up incorrectly to how to do that?
You did.
Isn't I still have to drag it in? It's just irritating.
I think what I would do is I would set up a filter. So for your labels, I would go back into the general settings and then look at the filters and then have it actually moves. So if you're applying a label, it's probably a second action that you might need to take as well. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. All right, there's a bunch of other things in this settings, but one of the things that I wanted to make sure you guys are aware of is that in this world, it doesn't allow you to change the inbox. So if you go to configure the inbox, I have seen more people get confused by this. And one time CWC updated their Google implementation, and I didn't know it, and I missed a ton of email in a couple-day period. And this is the culprit. So I want you to check all of the boxes in the configure inbox, and I want you to choose save, and then go back to your inbox. I don't know why they did this, but this is the dumbest thing I've seen. So if you notice at the top, now there's primary, there's social, there's promotions, there's updates, and there's forums. So sometimes I'm not aware of how those distinctions get made. And I was only looking at the primary. I didn't even know that those tabs got added. And so suddenly my email got divided up and I wasn't clicking through these other things. So if this happens to you, at least be aware of it. If you set up a brand new Google account, it might be something that they ask you to configure. But if you don't know what it is that you're looking for, it's like, yikes.
How does it choose what it's for?
And that's a good question. And
I
that's
need to figure that out.
and that's what blew my mind, is that I had students that were sending me things and it showed up as social and I wasn't looking there and they were angry that I wasn't responding to it. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I looked everywhere and finally it's like, well, there it was. It made me kind of mad. But so if you go to configure inbox, this is where you can basically get rid of them. So I keep my email in conversation format. How do you guys do yours? Do you keep them divided or do you keep them in conversation?
I
Conversation?
don't know how you'd ever follow a train of thought if you didn't have conversation on it. Because when I first gave us Google, I mean, our Gmail, I was like, well, why do I want all that stuff on there? And then people would respond and say yes. And you're like, yes to what?
Yes to what? And that was my big problem as well. So conversation format's been around a long time, but Google's implementation of this is pretty good. But here's why it's good. Do you want to really know why? I go up to the top. Wait, how am I spelling your name? H-E-Y. There we go. So why didn't anything come up? Think about it. Think. Who am I? Nice. Because I'm in the wrong email. Okay. So if I do a search for this, I use search all of the time. I use it probably every 10 minutes. I use search in my mail. And I do it because it's faster than me rolling the scroll wheel.
You know why I use it a lot? It's because I archive just about 90% of my stuff. I
Yep.
archive it. I do have all kinds of labels and sublabels and
Right.
sub-sublabels.
Right.
But I archive just about everything. Well, if there's something that just happens to be something that somebody vaguely remembers sending you, or you vaguely remember reading, it'll actually pull out of your archives.
Yes. Yes.
You'll never find it if you put it in your folders.
Yes.
So that's a plus.
So do you notice anything strange about my email here? Just look at either one of them. So why don't I open a lot of them? There's 19,918 there, and there's 35,493 in that one. Why don't I open them? I don't know either. But I can tell you that I actually read them. Look, I can actually read a whole bunch of each one of these messages, and I get enough that I can actually usually figure it out from here. But this isn't how I read my email. I read my email on my phone, and
Doesn't sync up.
no, it does, but I don't read it like that. I just do that. Look, and I will look at, but I mean, if I touch that, it doesn't read the email. It pulls it up, and I can see the first sentence or so. I just don't even bother anymore. There's just too many messages.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I have mine as snippet also, so you get that first line,
Yeah.
and then you can find out, essentially what it's about.
It's not worth my time frequently to go in and deal with like deleting, adjusting, because I'm not like, my job is different than Jan's. Okay. I don't need to keep every shard of email like that. You do. You absolutely do. I don't. In fact, I don't even like to, but I don't want to bother with it because my time's more valuable. If I had to deal with every single message, I get hundreds of emails every day. Hundreds. It's crazy. And I can't, I have a public face at CWC, and so people get hold of the address. I can't not have that address. I do the best I can. If somebody sends me what I think is garbage, if I check the box, so if I think that Corey is spamming me, I can actually come up here and I can report this as spam. And if I get something that's truly abusive, that's what I do. But that's about as far as I ever go. I've never really received that from a real human being, though. It typically comes, from, I mean, I just know it. I don't open it up. I see it and I'm like, screw that.
I don't even know your dollars from India.
Right. But I can see that usually in the beginning of it. It's like, done with that, done with that, done with that. But I use the report spam tool very precisely. Okay, I don't overuse it and I don't underuse it, and it works. So if I come over to the spam here, do you guys know that you have spam? Okay, so if I come over here to spam, look, there's 581 messages in here. I never see these. I've never seen these. This is the first time I've clicked on this in 4 months since September. So why are there only 581 messages in my spam folder?
Just set up automatically.
If you look at the very top, beneath the little dancing girls, it says delete all spam messages now, left parenthesis, messages that have been in spam more than 30 days will be automatically deleted. So I didn't do that. That's just the way it's set up. But I could get rid of all of them. But if I look through here, did it mix anything up?
It does.
It does sometimes. I actually had, so I buy domains for a lot of organizations, and over Christmas there was a message that was sent 6 times to me from GoDaddy, and it went to spam, and I didn't know it. And so the domain lapsed, and I had to like scramble to pay for it, and it's like, oh. But it doesn't happen frequently, but it can happen. Okay, so I'm just going to click delete all spam messages now, confirm deleting. Let's see if it lowers my 19,940 or 10 or whatever. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Right, no spam. It didn't lower my number though, did it?
Usually I count
Darn it. Okay, so the spam is a pretty cool tool for you to have. In the old days, we used to actually have spam devices. So we had to go buy this several $1,000 machine that would do nothing but that, look for spam. You get all that now, just with off-the-shelf kind of Google stuff. All right, so how is my Google Mail different than yours? Look at yours, look at mine. How's my, besides the ice cream cones and little dancing girls? Should I get rid of that? Is that distracting you, Melissa?
No.
Okay. How's mine different?
I open every email. You do not.
Okay, you open them all. Okay, but configuration wise, look at the left side of your screen. Is yours the same as mine? I suspect that my inboxes are different, or my mailboxes are different over here. I'm assuming you don't have an IMGT 2400 fall 2014. Most important of all mailbox, you don't have that, right? What about below that? What about in categories? Do you have anything in categories? Okay. What about below that?
I don't even have categories.
Okay. Do you have any this kind of stuff down below? So what is this below mine? Look at this. Oops, you are not invisible because you're logged into Google Talk from another client device or location that doesn't support invisibility. So this is the chat mechanism. And I think they pretty much call it Google Hangouts now. But if I wanted to actually chat with this guy, Matt Herr, so I can do that. So if I hover over this, come over here, we'll start a conversation. Yo, what you up to? What are you up to? And so if I send that, let's see if it comes over here to this one. All right. So I'm chatting with myself. So this is a plugin that you can add to your Gmail. I use a lot of the communication features, so the Google Voice, Google Hangouts, stuff like that, and that's why it's showing up here, and I've added it.
I wanted it gone from my work one because all it does is take up space, and it's frustrating, and you can't get rid of it. You can minimize it, but as soon as you accidentally get on top of it, it's right back there again. Is there a way in the settings to get rid of that?
To get rid of this down here? Yeah. Let's look. So I can certainly become invisible, sign out of it, and that sort of thing. But you can see that it still kind of stays there. So let's come up to the little triple dots at the upper right. Go to Settings. Let's see if it's in here. If I go to Extensions, it's not there. So I think they've built it in. It used to be an it used to be an add-on, but I don't think that's the case anymore.
Yeah, I tried everything.
So
Back 2 years, whenever it was 2 years ago that we got it.
there's one more place. So if you go to the settings and you turn chat off, you can see what that does. So chat off, save changes. It's going to reload, and now it is gone.
My hero. Yay!
So it used to be an extension, so now they just built it in, but you can, that's better because you can turn it off at least.
Okay.
I better turn mine back on, or else people will be trying to get me. And okay, chat on, save, and then it pops back up over here on the side. Okay, and I'm going to sign in.
So all of these things under chat are just for chat.
Mm-hmm.
Sound, etc.
Yeah, so when I come here, you can see here that it's got a few other things beneath my name. There's start a video call, there's chat with this contact, and then there's some other things here that I can actually block this person from chat. So if I don't like one of these people over here anymore. But actually the people that show up here are really the people that I use this kind of tool with. And then I have my personal over here, which is a little bit different list. So you can see my wife and my son are in there. And
Now the chat contacts are those only people that have Gmail?
they're people that I've actually added to Google Hangouts. It's a good question. So I typically use Google Hangouts on my phone, and I use Google Hangouts like you would use texting. Okay, so Google Hangouts for me is a couple of things. Do you use Google Hangouts?
No, I'm not.
Do you, Jimmy?
No.
Okay. All right. So let me pop this open and let's just see what happens.
Use Facebook Messenger, but I like to use Hangouts.
All right. So that's basically what Hangouts looks exactly like text messaging. So, but I have two accounts. So this is the Matt.her, and then this is my CWC mher. So it's just like mail. So if I come in here and I start a new video call, let's do a new video call. And I type in Matt.her. Let's see if it finds me. Okay, so I'll find myself. It's kind of goofy. So I'll start a video call. All right, and I've got. So it's calling, and it's probably going to show up over here. So it's trying anyway. Am I in the right one? So Hangouts must not be loaded on this machine here. So it's not actually picking it up. So we'll kill that. But that's what Google Hangouts can do. It's just like chat on speed.
Can you do multiple people on your video?
Yep. It works pretty well on phones. Works pretty well. So Skype is, you know, another one that you could use. There's plenty of other kind of tools. Messenger does, you know, similar sorts of things. The reason why I don't use Messenger is because I probably haven't logged into Facebook since November 9th or something. So, and it's a really wicked application on a cell phone. So if you're trying to preserve your battery life, it's about the worst app right now that you could possibly put on the phone. It'll just destroy your battery. So I leave in the morning and then I don't get home until late at night. So I need like 12 hours of battery. Well, you're thinking?
So in this case, given the fact that I just realized I had it downloaded on there. Given the fact that it looks through and catalogs your phone number contacts and as well as email contacts,
Mhm.
which one would be the use the features? I mean, obviously, you dial a phone number
Awesome. Okay, so this is why I teach this class. Thanks for asking the question. All right. I believe that technology sucks. I think they dribble it out to you in tiny little doses, just like a drug dealer would. Just enough to make sure that you keep coming back. It is not for your benefit. Okay? Jimmy's he's asking the right question, because really, what does it matter? If somebody's trying to communicate with you, does it really matter how that happens? Okay? Does it really matter? Does there need to be 14 different ways to communicate with you? You want to communicate, right? So why do you have to pay for 12 different ways for that to happen? If I say, I want to communicate with you, Melissa, what would be the best way for you right this moment?
My phone.
Your phone. Okay. So when you say that, what do you mean by that?
Through Yahoo, through email.
No. Do you want to see me? Do you want to hear me? Do you want to read my words? Do you want to see and hear me? What's the most appropriate way for you to communicate while you're sitting in a classroom right now?
Text.
Probably text. Because why? Hey, yeah, Billy, yeah, come on over anytime. Yeah, we'll be waiting on the, like, it doesn't even make any sense, right? That's intrusive, it's weird, it doesn't make any sense. But when you're in your car, do you really want to be driving down the highway and trying to type on your phone?
No.
Probably not. I mean, some people do, but probably not, right? So it's a little bit like the thermostat in your house, right? When you're home, what do you want the temperature to be?
60.
When you're not home, what would you prefer that the temperature be?
Sorry, 70, 60.
Okay, so you have preferences, right? And you're not constantly going over the thermostat to change it, right? It's like you might have programmed it to try to get to that, but if it could just know, right? Read my mind, know when I'm coming home, start the furnace up so it's at that right temperature the second I walk through the door. Okay? The same is true with communication, because Bailey has preferences when she's standing in a conversation next to Corey, right? Yeah, probably don't do a video call with me while I'm in a conversation with Corey. But when I'm sitting in my house petting my cat, yeah, okay, let's do a video call, right? That makes sense. So think about communication as being just that. Sometimes the written word is appropriate, sometimes pictures, sometimes video. It just depends. And so if you could have it all, that's what Google is trying to get at with the Hangouts application, is it's merging all of those things, Jimmy. It's taking your phone number, it's taking your video capabilities from maybe your phone, maybe your computer. It's trying to determine what it can do instead of making you choose. You don't know how to communicate with me. You just know that you want to communicate with me, so you call me at 2 a.m. because you're in a different country and it's going to be daytime here and you're kind of guessing a lot of times. So if you can imagine your address book being smart enough, an intelligent address book that could figure out what was most appropriate. And that's where the Google Hangouts thing is trying to go. It's looking at your address book, it's looking at all the various ways that you communicate with people, and it's trying to help you determine what's the best way. Is it texting? Is it a voicemail? Is it a video call? What is it? What is it? So that for me is going to be the next great theme with communication. Do you need a letter? There are some people that you don't ever want to text them, you don't want to call them, you don't want to see them. Send me a letter and send it a really slow way, right? So think about communication as just that. Instead of it being email, instead of it being video conferencing, think of it as just communication. And what's appropriate at this moment might not be appropriate in an hour. And we all have our different preferences. So anyway, that's kind of what the Hangouts thing is trying to get at. is it's trying to figure out intelligently how to best go about this. Okay, so we've kind of covered a lot of the settings and options and things like that in the Google Drive, and I just want to keep you for a few more minutes, and I want to go to Google Drive, and when you're in Google Drive, I want you to check out the settings box in this one. So go to the gears icon, go to the settings once you have Google Drive open, and the way I get there is I click on the little tic-tac-toe thingy. And this settings is far less crazy. Okay, there's not nearly as much stuff going on. There's one or two things that you need to pay attention to. If you have a personal account, storage is probably going to be limited. So at CWC, you have theoretically unlimited storage. So that's what I'm using for my CWC account. And on my personal account, it's going to say, let me go back over here. I'll just show you that. So if I go to personal and I go to settings, it's going to tell me that I have used 17 gigabytes of 38. So I'm limited at 38. I've paid for a little bit of it, but it's different than CWC's. So back to my CWC drive settings. If I look at the general settings, the most important box that you can or cannot check is the convert uploads. All right, this is what this does. Remember how we right-clicked and said open with, and it converted it into a Google Doc? Well, this will allow you to automatically have things converted into Google Docs format, which could be really good or really bad. It just depends upon what it is. It just depends. So I typically leave mine unchecked because I want the originals. I don't want to have, a converted document. I want to keep and preserve that original document. And then as I view them, I right-click and choose to open them. And I think that's a really important decision for you to be able to make. So if you've got a pile of stuff and you know that you want it converted to Google Docs format and you're going to keep the originals on your own computer, then by all means, was that me?
I don't know, somebody.
That was you?
Me, calling myself.
Oh, okay. All right. So if you know that you have a whole folder full of stuff and you want to convert it to Google Docs format because you just know that's what you want to do, you're going to hold on to that folder on your own computer and do something else with it. Well then, yeah, don't do it individually. Check the box, throw all that stuff up there, automatically converts it. It saves you a lot of steps, especially if you have a ton of files. But otherwise, I generally don't have that box checked. All right, so there's a couple of other things down here at the bottom. Create a Google Photos folder. Automatically put your Google Photos into a folder in my drive. How many of you use Google Photos? Let's just see if I use it for anything. Do you think I use it? I bet I do. Aww. Okay, I have thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures here. What is that? There was a mink outside my house. Yeah, dead mink. Like, what? Where'd that come from? Aww. 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 You guys don't want to see all this. Okay, so I do use Google Photos a lot. If I come back to my drive, this drive, was this the drive I was in? I don't remember which drive I was in. Okay, but if I check that box, it would automatically put your Google Photos into a folder in my drive. Otherwise, they're going to be all listed here. So I can still get to them. They're already right there. There's not a folder in my Google Drive.
What would the advantage be of having?
That's a good question.
Of course, it's not anywhere, it's just up there, so it's just another access point, correct?
I would assume so. So when I'm looking for photos, I have the Google Photos app here, and I look at my Google Photos through the Google Photos app. I'm not going to the Drive. I have way too many photos in there. So I use the Photos app to be able to search, find those albums, make albums, do all those other sorts of things. So if you're not using it for very many things, it might make sense. If you're actually using it, like a real photo storage place, then it probably doesn't make sense. So, and they change this a lot, so I'd be really careful about like hitching your wagon to any of this stuff. I think putting things in Google Drive is fine, but photos, maybe as an archive, yeah, put them in there, and so I'm not going to use them again.
All my,
Yeah,
I've got an external hard drive with all my photos on, and then I have
right.
another backup that can
And that would make sense, but for your primary access, not so much, because it doesn't hold the metadata like a place like Flickr or Google Photos would. So you can actually add other attributes if you're a photographer to be able to easily manage those files. Okay, so settings, notifications. If I go to notifications, send notifications to my email. Notify me on this device. I'm not even sure what that does anymore. The following apps have been connected to Drive. So all of these applications are things that I use to do stuff with. We're going to talk more about these, but this is where you can go and actually see all the things that you can do. So I'll just tell you, the folder copy I use pretty frequently. The Glyphy diagrams I use frequently. Google Drawings, Google Forms, Sheets, Maps, Lucid Chart, I use that pretty frequently. And I'm intrigued by UltraDocs, and that's why it's on there. So most of them I don't use frequently, but a bunch I do. And I test things out a lot.
And I don't have half of those on here, is that why I can more apps?
You can actually add more things, and we'll get into that on another day here, because I think that adding applications and add-ons can really extend the functionality. And I'll show you some very specific things that I do with some of my little widgets and gadgets and stuff like that. Okay, so for tomorrow, what I want you to do is I want you to look in your calendar. So I want you to go to the calendar, and we're going to go over details about how to get your calendar set up so that it's most useful for you. Okay, and a lot of times people are thinking about calendars as if it's one thing. Think about calendars. How many of you have an animal? All right, so some of you have animals, some of you don't. Think about is there any reason why you'd have a calendar just for your cat or your dog? Yeah, you might, okay? But you put them on your calendar, don't you? So why do you put them on your calendar if it's not about you? If you had a really sick animal, they would fill up your whole calendar though, right? All the things that you're supposed to do. So your neighbor's coming over to deal with it, but it's on your calendar. So it makes you look like oh my gosh, this person doesn't do anything but take care of their animal. So to begin to be able to have multiple calendars, it is a really sensible idea. It might be for your schoolwork, it might be for your work, it might be for, something else. I do a lot of volunteer work, so I will have other calendars up here. So you can see I've got Lander Half Marathon, I've got a public calendar that I keep, and there'll be some other ones throughout the year that I keep. So like ski events and things like that. They're not different, but they're different sorts of activities. And so I try to begin to segment. And if you can imagine like transparencies where you'll do overlays, and the reason why people use one calendar is mostly because in the old days, we had a big calendar and you hung it on the wall, and when you had stuff that needed to go on a calendar, you wrote it down on that one calendar. And we think one calendar. And that's why. So I want you to look at the settings on calendar. I want you to look at how your calendar is configured, and we'll step through some ways to maybe begin to get your calendar set up a little bit more solid for you. Everybody's going to do it different, but we'll show you some tips and tricks and stuff like that. All right, so I want you to come to class tomorrow with that, but I also want you to come to class with some questions about other Google things or other tools, social media things, whatever. I want you to bring some questions, some problems, some mystifying things. Good. That's good. Makes the most interesting classes. All right, so I'm going to stop this little